Hello, everybody, and welcome to this new e-conference of the Luxembourg Association for Family Office. My name is Francis Parisis. I'm one of the board members, and I have the privilege of lining up for you three really interesting and good speakers. King Si, who is the president of the China Lux Chamber of Commerce. We have Nicolo Poli, who is the CEO of HSBC Luxembourg. And we have Rupert Hogewerf, who is the chairman and main researcher for the Huron report. The main topic that we're going to discuss with the three is obviously China and the relationship that we have between China and Luxembourg. How can we further develop this relationship? How can we get big family offices setting up here in Luxembourg? How can we develop the private wealth business between the countries? And, of course, look at any other opportunities that we have. Let's go straight to it. Hi, good day, everybody, and welcome back to the LAFO conference on China. Versus the opportunities that we can have in Luxembourg. We have a very special guest today, Rupert Hogewerf, who was actually born in Luxembourg, but has been living in China for quite some time, and who's the Huron Report chairman and key researcher. I think if you could describe Rupert in a couple of words, he's one of the few foreigners, I believe, who's really made it in China and who's really been able to come up with a very specific reports and analysis on what the market is doing, how things are developing. And I think it's a great opportunity for all of us to hear what Rupert has to say about the developments that have been going on in China, how that impacts obviously things in China, Yeah, Rupert, you've been talking on some of the China Chopsticks events as well. I've heard you a couple of times. Very interesting. Yeah, I would say welcome to the conference, and very much looking forward to having this very interesting presentation on the report, and obviously a couple of the unicorns that you were going to talk about.
Vielmals merci, Francis. Es sind Rupert Hogewerf, sind zu Lützburg geboren, an zu Bartring an der Schule gewesen. An lo wunderlich zu Shanghai, sie lo 20 Jahre zu Shanghai dort drin. Wir machen viele Recherchen, wir machen auch viele Evenements, Media, Publicité und so weiter. Anyway, it's very nice to be invited today, and thank you very much for the opportunity. I guess what I was sort of going to talk about was just to give an idea as to what's going on in China. I mean, I'm based in Shanghai, and we've had effectively a COVID-free year. So we've been able to travel all the way around the country, and the economy has actually been pretty hot in the last year. And just to give you an idea as to what type of hot we're talking about here, I mean, we do, and we're quite famous in China for doing something called the Huron China Rich List. So we rank the most successful entrepreneurs in China. And our cutoff has been 300 million euros for the last, I'd say, sort of 15, 20 years or something like that. And in the last year, we found over 700 new faces. I mean, 700. I mean, get real, that's a massive number. And so we've never actually had as good a year in terms of wealth creation as we've seen in China in the last year. And the dynamics of this sort of wealth creation has also changed a lot. So before it was people making their money from real estate. And now it seems to be healthcare has grown up. So the number of entrepreneurs, we found almost 2,500 who have more than 300 million euros. And 300 million euros, don't get me wrong, is a very, very, very big number. But the number of individuals with that made their money in healthcare is now more than property, is now more than manufacturing. So I mean, this is something that the quality of the wealth creation, if you like, has also changed a lot, especially in the last year. Another point just worth making is that the reason that you and your audience today, Francis, should be looking at this is that there are now more super wealth creators in China than there are in the US. So when we started doing sort of the billionaires rankings in the world, and in the US and China about 5 years ago, they're about the same, so about 500. And today there are over $1,000 billionaires that we know of in China. And in the US, there's just under 700. So, China's doubled the number of super wealth creators, if you want to call that self-made billionaires, to over 1,000 in the last 5 years, whereas America's grown by a very, very healthy 50%. But the difference now is 300 known billionaires, so, US dollar billionaires. And that's significant because it shows that there's so many people running around here with great ideas who are able to not just do it themselves, but also be there as a mentor for younger entrepreneurs. They're also there as sort of able to give confidence and financial backing to younger businesses. So this entrepreneur startup ecosystem, which is stuff that I'm researching a lot at the moment, I think in Beijing, especially, for example, is one of the most complete that I know of. You've got great raw talent coming from the universities. You've got a lot of great entrepreneurs or super wealth creators. You want to call them mentors if you want. You've then got a very complete investor database, an investor network, made up of professional investors like venture capitalists, PEs, and so on, but also strategic investors from the entrepreneurs, the billionaires and other successful entrepreneurs before. And then you've got a lot of government programs and business associations and tech associations and so on. So you put all those four elements together and you've got a very complete entrepreneur startup ecosystem. And I think a lot of countries in the world should be looking and scratching their heads and thinking to themselves, hang on, what should we be doing better in terms of the entrepreneur startup ecosystem? And I think it's extremely important because get it right, you've got the future big businesses starting up in your country. Get it wrong, they're starting up in somebody else's country. And if they're starting up in somebody else's country, well, then they're going to be paying taxes in other people's countries. They're going to be hiring great talent in other people's countries. So one of the second reports that I think is probably worth mentioning that I'm very proud to be doing is the Hurun Global Unicorn List, where we look at not the most successful individuals, but the most exciting dynamic businesses in the world that are worth 1 billion US dollars or more, but that are not yet publicly listed companies. And here again, US is probably the number one. There's probably about 800 known unicorns in the world today. And China is number two with, say, about 300. So, sorry, US has got about half, about 400. And China's got about 300. Well, out of 800, that only leaves about 100 for the rest of the world. So China and America, between them, have 80%, or just over 80% of the world's known unicorns. And if I'm a European government leader, I'd be scratching my head and going like, hey, that's pretty significant, because China and America between them have only got 25% of the world's population, 40% of the world's GDP, but they've got 80% of the world's most exciting next-gen businesses, the unicorns of the world. And this takes me back to my entrepreneur startup ecosystem, is that if you've got a very complete ecosystem for startups, and you've got the raw talent, the investors, you've got the mentors, and then you've also got the tech associations and government programs. Well, this is pretty significant, and they feed on each other. In Europe, the number one destination for unicorns is London, and we found 30 coming out of the UK, but followed by France and Germany, and then other countries in Europe as well. So, and that just sort of gives you an indication. None that we know of yet in Luxembourg, although Luxembourg's a very strong base for, sort of other, for business registrations in itself. So I guess that the key thing that the key point is, number one, is that in terms of self-made super wealth creators, China at the moment has got more than the US. And the significance is specifically is that there are so many strategic investors and mentors, if you like, running around the place here in China. And then the second is that the entrepreneur startup ecosystem is such an important thing to get right. You get it right, the future brightest, most dynamic companies leading the most important industries, the A, B, C, D, E's of this world. The A is AI, B, blockchain, C, cloud, D, data, e-commerce, fintech, 5G, health tech. You can go on down the alphabet, but the leaders of these industries are pretty much the unicorns of this world. And we want to have a place in this. We want to be a player in here, in Europe. And so, I think it's very important to keep promoting, keep doing this, because especially post-COVID, a lot of the European economies are coming back up again. And in order to pull up new green shoots, and in order to promote new green shoots in the economy, well, this is a fantastic way of doing it. And then my final point, I suppose, is the leaders of this are going to be, in many ways, the investors. The investors need to have, if they're willing to do angel and early stage venture capital or late stage venture capital and early stage PE and so on and so forth, the investors play a huge part in this because they can identify the companies with the best future, help them not just cash-wise, but also in so many more ways that the good sort of investment houses do, and the good family offices, this is what they do, and then bring them out to into big companies, possibly go IPO in their own right, possibly get a merger in their own right as well. And this is what I suppose I'm doing really, is I'm promoting these entrepreneur startup ecosystems. I'm trying to engage with the top family offices. I'm trying to engage with the top investors. I'm trying to engage with the top government associations and tech associations, etc., as well as the entrepreneurs themselves. And what we're doing in Europe this year, I think is quite exciting. We're launching the Huron Unicorn in Europe. So we're launching the Huron European Unicorn list. That will be in August this year, so in a couple of months' time. We'll also be launching the Huron UK under 30s entrepreneurs to watch, the Huron Germany, Huron Spain, and under 30s to watch. So the top young entrepreneurs in the UK, in Germany, and in Spain. They're the three countries that we already signed up. We're looking to do in France. We're looking to do in Benelux as well. We haven't found partners, and Italy and Switzerland as well, but we haven't found our partner base there. So that's what I really want. Is I need to find partners who share the same vision with us, to want to build out and promote and develop the entrepreneur startup ecosystem, especially because I believe it's one of the most exciting times in the world to be studying entrepreneurs, because you've got these massive, we're almost at the cusp of the fifth industrial revolution. Everybody's talking about the fifth industrial revolution will be biotech. But we're certainly right in the heart of the fourth industrial revolution with the AI and the blockchain, cloud and the ABCDEs, as I said, but also at the time when so many of these European economies, they need to find green shoots. They need to promote young entrepreneurs and young businesses to be the future, BMWs, the future Unilevers, the future, sort of LVMH of this world. That's what they're looking to do. So that's what I guess my mission is, through lists and research, to promote these entrepreneur startup communities and ecosystem. And I really hope that through LAFO today, I can find partners who can help me grow, and build out my vision and dreams across Europe. But obviously starting in Luxembourg, starting through Benelux, and then maybe going to the neighbors of France and Italy and Switzerland, which are obviously very strong places. So thank you, Francis. Thank you, LAFO, for this opportunity today. I hope that you can grow, and we can grow with you guys as well. Thank you.
And thank you very much, Rupert, for this very interesting overview on, and especially the numbers are flabbergasting. They're just, absolutely surreal sometimes to really get what's going on in that part of the world. And obviously, very interesting point you made about Europe, which seems to be trailing in comparison to the other two big nations. So that's something that obviously you mentioned. You need to get it right, and obviously that's always the big thing, right? How do you get it right? And that's, I think, a question also towards you, like how do you get it right? And obviously, I think maybe the next question would be, what is then your definition of what is a unicorn, what isn't a unicorn? Because that's very often the difficult thing to identify. And one company may be unicorn today, but it may not be tomorrow. So, but I think, how do you get it right?
Well, I mean, from a European government point of view and individual countries within the EU, the idea is that you've got to, and everybody's doing it, is you've got to promote the entrepreneur startup ecosystem. And in order to promote it, it's not going to happen by chance. It's got to happen with some planning. So you've got to, link the top universities, the raw talent, with the mentors, with the investors. And that's where you guys come in. These family offices, they need to be putting money into, sort of early stage venture capital and, funds, if you like. And as well as obviously maybe doing their own direct investments, maybe, or through Ps as well. So I think it's all about promoting this entrepreneur startup ecosystems. It's easy to say. It doesn't happen by chance, but it's really the momentum grows because Europe has got so many fantastic universities, just looking across the borders in France and Paris and Heidelberg and Cologne, all these, and Holland and Belgium. You've got the world famous universities. So you've got world-class raw talent. It's about linking that raw talent, it's about inspiring them to want to become entrepreneurs, linking them into the into the business world, not just global 500 most valuable companies in the world, who are too big. Sometimes these big companies, they already got their own systems in place, but trying to link into this startup ecosystem is so important. I've used that word many times. And then for the second point is, it is interesting about a lot of people for some reason don't quite get what a unicorn is. So a unicorn, the official definition, is a business that has not yet gone public. It's not yet been sold to, it's not yet gone public. So it's not yet listed on a stock exchange, or it's not yet been merged into a big corporation. So it's a standalone business that's worth $1 billion or more. So that's the official definition. Now, I've seen so many different reports about it that the reason I started doing my own report on the Hurun Global Unicorn List or Index is precisely because, when I was talking to the UK government, for example, they said, oh, yeah, we got 80 unicorns or something. And I was thinking, okay, that's amazing, great. And then actually what they've done is they've counted all the previous companies that were unicorn and now gone public or actually being merged or actually no longer are unicorns, like their valuation's gone down, they've got it wrong. And so our, the Hurun Unicorn Index, Global Index, is actually trying to put all the unicorns in the world at the same level. And then we've published a list. It should be very useful. If you're an investor, I would say it's really, really interesting to see which industries these unicorns are disrupting, which industries these unicorns are actually coming from, what their core competency is as well. Which investors have done best, which are the most successful investors in the unicorn say, because the unicorn was originally the concept was a very difficult thing to find because a unicorn doesn't exist. And so the idea of a unicorn was it's so difficult to find that if you're an investor, you can get it. Wow, you've done really well. It's actually a term that was coined by an investor, in fact. But nowadays, there are lots of unicorns, and it doesn't come by chance. The investors who do well, they don't just invest in one unicorn. One of the top investors, they've invested into over 100 unicorns. Wow. This is no longer by chance. So get it right. And, there's an awful lot of money to be made. But more importantly, I think it's extremely meaningful for, individual countries, for an organization like the EU or whatever, to have more of these unicorns means that the future is with us here.
Thank you very much, Rupert. And thanks for the clarification. It's always good to see where that's going. So I think if we look at Luxembourg, and you mentioned that you haven't really seen a unicorn in Luxembourg, but in Luxembourg we are very busy, as you know, on really trying to get entrepreneurs and to really put the youngsters to kick off with their own enterprises. And the House of Entrepreneurs in Luxembourg is actually really doing a good job. Can they do more? Of course, they can always do more, but I think it is definitely kicking off. And with an association like LAFO, very happy to continue assisting you, helping you, providing you with the necessary information and introductions and contacts where we can, where it's possible. So very much for looking forward to that.
I tell you what we would really need from you is we're trying to do the Huron Luxembourg under 30s entrepreneurs to watch. And so we were trying to come up, or we might expand it to Benelux if there's not quite enough people to really make it worthwhile in Luxembourg itself. But what we're looking for is a partner, commercial partner, who can gain advantage from knowing all these top young entrepreneurs. And these top young entrepreneurs are so exciting to be around. We do it this year we're going to be doing it in 10 countries. So we're in China, India, US, Canada, Australia, Japan, South Korea. And then, as I mentioned, in Europe, Germany, UK, and Spain. So we're in 10 countries this year. For Benelux, for a partner, what we want to find a partner in Luxembourg or in Benelux who wants to be our commercial partner, putting together events for the Huron Benelux U30s, as we call it, the under 30 entrepreneurs to watch. It's nothing more than an encouragement. So we list out, not in a ranking, but we just put out a list of maybe 50, 60 names of individuals who are not yet 30 years old, who are really deserve to be watched. From an investor point of view, these people are probably the most interesting young entrepreneurs to follow and watch as their careers grow. And so step one is to do it for Benelux. So let's say we do it for Luxembourg or for Benelux itself. Step two is we start linking the Benelux top young entrepreneurs with the young entrepreneurs from France, from Germany, from China, from India, Australia, America. And then it's something different. Then we're actually creating something that is super amazing. And this is what my dream is I'm looking to find partners who want to share in this dream and who can get advantage from this, can make commercial value from this. Then it makes business sense as well.
Well, thank you very much, Rupert. Always good to have a couple of takeaways at the end of a conference. So thank you for being with us today. Very interesting once again, and I hope to see you very soon, either in China or hopefully here in Luxembourg. Thank you.
Lovely. Well, hopefully in Luxembourg this summer. Thank you.
Welcome everybody and to this next conference of LAFO. Very happy to have you all here, and we have a very specific topic today, which is going to be about China, the impact of China on Luxembourg, what it's going to bring to Luxembourg, and we have a very special guest, Nicolo Polli, the CEO of HSBC Luxembourg. Welcome, Nicolo. Very happy to have you today. We're going to be touching on specific topics on how Asia, specifically China, etc., is impacting Europe, and in more words, Luxembourg. So maybe to start, so obviously HSBC stands for Hong Kong Shanghai Banking Corporation. I know we can't really say that anymore, but it's really HSBC nowadays. But so you've got this really, really large footprint in Asia. You're the gateway from China via Hong Kong to Europe and all the other regions in the world. So what are you seeing right now with China in terms of wealth management and how has it actually been developing?
Yeah, well, look, first off, thank you very much for having invited me and hosting me here on LAFO. It's always a pleasure. Hong Kong, Shanghai Banking Corporation, correct. We do have a big footprint in Asia. I think we're the first or second largest wealth manager there. And you know, China has grown a lot in the last 20 plus years. And along with this incredible growth has come a lot of wealth creation. Very often this is first generation still, because it is quite a nascent country in this regard. This trend has accelerated a lot under COVID, a bit like in other places of the globe. But let me give you some stats that I've taken, because I think these are quite impressive. So there are currently 626 billionaires in China. They control 15% of the GDP, which is 2.5 trillion US dollars, and are on average 63 years old. Over the past 12 months alone, so I think this was from April, so April to April, 236 billionaires were added to the list. Okay, that is one every 36 hours, which is quite impressive. The new billionaires are worth 1.9 billion and are 10 years younger than the previous ones on the list. So they're 53 years of age on the whole. And they will tend to be, we'll get to this in a second, more the new gen or the next gen kind of billionaires. And we'll define that in a second. Just for comparative purposes, the US has 724 billionaires and added only 110 in the last only. I mean, it's still a lot, but only 110 in the last 12 months, which compares to 236 in China, so only half. Another key stat is when we talk about ultra high net worth, so liquid assets of over 30 million, there are 80,000 families in China that qualify for that, 17,000 of which are in the Greater Bay Area. So when we look at this, it's a huge opportunity, and it's growing incredibly fast versus other markets. So we mentioned that a lot of the wealth creation is first generation. And we, to simplify things, we'll sort of categorize the billionaire class, let's say, or in any case, the ultra high net worth into two. We have the old gen, and then we'll have the new gen or the next gen. If we look at the old gen, it's more traditional wealth, let's say. So from old economy sectors, construction, real estate, and they are typically more mainland China focused. They have real physical assets there, and their wealth is quite closely tied to China. They are looking at succession planning, but they're also quite happy keeping most of their wealth within within mainland China, within the Chinese confound. The second bit is around the new gen or the next gen generation, and these are typically more new sector, so tech, pharma. They've made it in a slightly different way. So their assets and their wealth isn't physically in mainland China. Often they will have made it through an IPO or by, in any case, opening up the shareholding. So in the old gen, it might be more family owned and family run. The next gen is broader than that. And a good example was, Alibaba IPO created, it's estimated over 100 millionaires, just that one in China. The next gen are more open to the concept of cashing out on their wealth and then reinvesting it in other ideas. They were also often educated overseas, and they've come back into China. So here, on the next gen, it's much easier to have discussions around what we call internationalization of their wealth and bringing it beyond the borders of just mainland China in a diversification play.
This whole internationalization, because obviously we've been talking about the families becoming a lot more international, a lot more global, investing, not just no longer Asia or China focused, a lot more towards even Europe. We've been seeing companies and large families arriving in Europe to invest in opportunities, what they see. Do you think that the Chinese market and the market you're seeing within the spectrum of HSBC and especially in that banking world, do you think it's ready for sort of family office world? Do you think it's ready to go into this sort of next step and really say, we are going to do this?
So I think we're getting there. I think there are different phases of this. And the first one is indeed internationalization. It's sort of the first step. And the first conversation to have is on that, which is the individual, is the family comfortable with all of their wealth in mainland China, or are they considering internationalizing it, and bringing it abroad? If they're comfortable on the first, then frankly, it's probably more of a local play, and that would be a local relationship manager for us, and you talk about, you know, options within that. If they're more comfortable around internationalizing it and bringing it abroad and starting a diversification play, then that is, I think, where we have more of the opportunity around what you're mentioning, around family offices. Now, the next gen or the new gen is more open to those ideas than perhaps the old gen, but it can be of both. And just to be clear, this isn't, there's nothing sinister around this. This is a typical evolution. When you think of first generation wealth, you know, the first step is, normally that will have been made within one country, the confines of a geopolitical system. And one of the first steps is generally internationalization. You know, if you think back to the Rockefellers or other wealthy American or European families, they have done this, you know, many generations ago. So for the Chinese wealthy families, it's really the first step. And there are two. There was mainly one center for this, which was Hong Kong, and now there's another one emerging, which is Singapore. Hong Kong is clearly the typical one, let's say, right? It's right across the border. It's connected now via rail. It's got culture, you know, language, proximity. It's got everything going for it. Singapore, however, is rapidly emerging as a competitor to Hong Kong in this respect. And I think what people are looking for in the internationalization is a variety of things. The first one is geographical, fiscal treatment, stability, an investment ecosystem, right? So not just you know, a family office. You need a whole ecosystem that accompanies that, meaning the lawyers and the investment professionals. And Singapore is really pushing on this, including sort of an immigration strategy, right? Because these are clearly very attractive individuals to have within Singapore. So if they can bring not just the wealth, but also the individuals, it helps them a lot. So that's really it. That's the first part of internationalization. Yeah. And then you move on to diversification and family office management.
Because that's obviously an interesting point. I think the diversification, you mentioned the Rockefellers, they obviously started in the refinery business and all, and then obviously they started looking at the rail works and the transportations, etc. I think the Chinese and Asia in general, they have the same mindset. But how does diversification work for you, and how do you look at it? Because I think for Chinese, it's, and from what I hear and I've seen, is that they remain sometimes very local. They try to diversify. And how is that going to evolve? How is that going to work? And how are we going to see that come to Europe and to the likes of Luxembourg?
Yeah, so I think there's an opening up to this concept of diversification, right? And the concept of a safety net is well understood. And not putting all your eggs in one basket. I'm sure they have a saying for it. These are the English versions of it. But the concept of diversification fits well within that. And it's a relatively standard discussion to a certain extent, which is, you know, you have your core investments, your satellite investments, and there are different parts of diversification. You know them well. Geographical is obviously one, and then you look at asset classes and, you know, where they're located and what the alpha and the beta and all of that. And so we have those discussions, and they're open to that. I think the slight difference is they tend to look a lot for physical assets, real assets. They still like that a lot. So whether that is real estate or in terms of private equity, they're less likely to invest in a fund of private equity, but more to be interested in a specific target. Or if you look at debt, again, it's less likely to invest in a fund, but more a specific corporate or a specific sovereign or a specific opportunity. So I think those are the things we need to take into account. One thing this does create is you know, traditional risk management of a portfolio is typically limited to sort of stocks and bonds. You know, maybe you can add in a little bit of funds or private equity into that. But when you start to have a very diverse portfolio that has a lot of real assets in it, you know, some of the risk management tools were insufficient. And so we had to upgrade our tools on that. We use the Aladdin platform, which I think now is gaining support and is relatively well known. And that has really had a very good impact with clients because it allows you to have a broader conversation around their portfolio, including the real estate assets located around the world and the specific opportunities that they have. So that's been a very powerful tool for us.
I think one of the big topics in what you actually mentioned, and I think it's really about the conversations on what they're going to be investing, because you're talking about investment opportunities. And what are they looking at? Is it going to be companies that are buying? You're talking about real estate. And so I guess a lot of the things that is happening within that context is going towards second generation. What is going to happen with it? Estate planning, generation.
Yep.
Where is this going? How is this going to evolve? What are you going to see? Is it how can we help as an organization and environment in it?
Yeah, so I think you're absolutely right. If we think of these in phases, right? The first one was massive wealth creation, very much China mainland linked. The second phase then is openness to internationalization and bringing some of that into Hong Kong or Singapore or other centers. Once you have the international element of it, then you can absolutely discuss diversification with them, which is viewed as a safety net and spreading the wealth into different opportunities. And then I think we can move on to estate planning is a good one. Now in the past, if you talk to them about will and testaments, they would think you're cursing them. So it wasn't often a very good or easy conversation to have. But now I think it has become more, not mainstream, but more acceptable, because they have seen in the press certain examples of family planning gone awry and family feuds occurring and businesses breaking up because of that. So again, it's an evolution, but more and more becoming open to this concept of saying, fine, let's talk about intergenerational planning. How do we do that? How do we set ourselves up so that, when I am no longer here as the founder, that the family is set up and it doesn't collapse after that. So there is an absolute move in that direction. We can get even further. We get to impact investing for some, and this is a little bit the concept of noblesse oblige. There's been other examples of all this wealth creation in such a short period of time. If you think of where they come from, all of them 10, 20 years ago, they really want to give back. And so impact investing is a discussion that they're now open to as well. Yeah. And obviously the most extreme or positive form of that is philanthropy. And so there's even an add-on possibly around philanthropy and considering your legacy and giving back to the community without asking anything in return whatsoever. So this is where I think we move beyond diversification, estate planning, impact investing, and then eventually even philanthropy.
I may be adding an additional question, but so we just talked about philanthropy, we talked about impact investment. How is ESG working right now? Because obviously ESG is all over the place. We're seeing it everywhere, and obviously Luxembourg is very big in pushing it forward. How do you see ESG working for the Chinese and Asia in general? Is it going to be as important as we think it is for us, or is it something that we may be overestimating?
So I think it's coming into the frame now as well. I believe Europe is still the leader of this and probably will be for a while. But the Chinese did create a green taxonomy before us with regards to bonds. And China has just recently announced commitments to reducing, if not, I think it was even to bring it to net zero, its own carbon footprint. I believe it was by 2060, so a bit later. But again, they're later in the economic cycle than us. So it is a conversation that they're having. I think it's as usual, when you walk out the door, if you're impacted by pollution and by climate change, then it's something you feel. And I believe it is coming into that discussion. Now, there are many people in China, really, probably only the top echelon are really thinking about this currently. But again, that's who we're targeting.
Right, you've been to Hong Kong, you've been to China, so you know what it's like sometimes in the summer. So I think ESG is very important there. So let's see. But so maybe then going back to the original point. So with all these movements going on and what's going on in the business, do you think that Luxembourg has a place to play? Is it really going to be a place where we'll see family offices being created? Is it going to be a primary role, or are we not there yet?
So it could be and probably should be. I think it's going to be an evolution. So if I think of our own internal conversations, we have a lot of marketing, education to do with our own colleagues. When they think of Europe, they typically think of London, or they think of Switzerland or Geneva, right? Currently. The fact that neither one of these is in the European Union after Brexit, and Switzerland never was, is something that is not immediately understood or recognized. And so I think, we have a role to play in educating around the role of Luxembourg and what it can do, and why it is distinct from the UK and London and from Switzerland and Geneva. And I'm talking purely internally here. This is what we do internally in HSBC, because we have our colleagues on the line to make sure of that. And generally they thank us. They said, we didn't really realize that. That's really interesting. And now we're going to go talk to our clients about this.
Yeah.
So it's a long journey. Right now the immediate go-to is Hong Kong. Singapore is competing strongly in terms of the international centers. It will evolve and it will continue to spread. And I think part of that is also working as an ecosystem in Luxembourg to come up with a compelling proposition that can compete and bring or attract these types of clients over here. There is a large, as you know well, the Chinese population here. Absolutely. It's a beautiful country. There's a lot going for it. So, yes, it should be and it could be.
Yeah. So, but I think from what you're saying, obviously Singapore is the hub growing right now, where there's a lot of attention happening, and I think family offices and there. Obviously, Luxembourg for Europe is very important. We've got the law here in Luxembourg. We've got the infrastructure. We've got all the big banks present. We've got a lot of concentration in terms of investment structures. And the new Silk Road initiative is obviously very much driven through Luxembourg. So what is that you think we may need in terms of push for Luxembourg to really get here? Is this something political? Is it something economical? Is it taxes? Is it something that we shouldn't be talking about?
Well, I don't know. I mean, if you look at what they're looking for, right, which is stability, fiscal benefits, a financial investment ecosystem, a nice place for the family to come and live, etc. There's a lot going for it, and Luxembourg would generally tick all of these boxes. I think part of it is marketing and getting out there and being known. It takes time. Yeah. I was literally just on an interview with Claude Marx, and the brand of Luxembourg is probably 20, 30 years still dated back, right around the not so good clients in private banking, and people still remember that, and it has nothing to do with the current situation or even the situation a decade ago, but that stays. So it's probably time. It's a constant reminder and pressure of going out there and advertising what Luxembourg offers, what the ecosystem offers, and I think repeated over time, it's a powerful force to get people to start considering Luxembourg, and along with London and Geneva, and then seeing the benefits, and I think that's probably what it takes, is a bit of time.
No, I fully agree with you. I think the whole branding around Luxembourg is one of the things that we really need to try to do and really develop, and that's what we try to do with LAFO as well. And thank you very much, Nicolas, for this very interesting conversation. Thank you very much all for attending, and hope to see you on the next LAFO conference. Hello everybody, and welcome again to this e-conference of LAFO. Today we have a very special guest that I would like to introduce. It's King Xi, and she's the president of China Lux. King, you're based in Luxembourg, and you've been here for a very long time. So, today we will discuss obviously how you as a president and the association China Lux have an impact about the relationships between Luxembourg and China, how this will evolve, the importance obviously of it, because it's a very important relationship that we have with China. The presence of Chinese banks and other institutions and actually quite a few residents as well here in Luxembourg is growing, and I think there's quite a few interesting topics that we will discuss today. So, King, maybe to just have an introduction on China Lux as an association, can you maybe provide some further background on how do you function, what is the purpose, what do you typically organize, and these kind of things? Thank you.
Thank you, Francis, for inviting me to give this today's interview. I'm very happy to have this opportunity to introduce our chambers and share some success stories. So the China Lux Chamber of Commerce was, China Lux was founded in 2013. It is a private non-profit organization. Our mission is to support bilateral trade and cultural ties between China and Luxembourg. We are the accredited chamber by the Luxembourg Chamber of Commerce. As a bilateral chamber, we support the China and the Luxembourg business communities. By doing so, we aim to promote the positive connections and networking. We work closely with the other chambers, organizations, and relevant government representatives. As you may know, the Chinese ambassador to Luxembourg is an honorary president of China Lux. After starting with only 20 founding members, we now have around 115 members. Our members represent a wide range of sectors, from finance to logistics, telecommunications, and ICT, etc. We do our best to help our members develop their business in China and Luxembourg. Thank you.
Thank you very much, King. Very interesting, and obviously, you emphasize the importance, and that is confirmed by the growth of the association and the Chamber of Commerce, with the number of members that you now have, and no longer just a focus on the financial sector, but all the other ones, and especially logistics and such, which in Luxembourg is an extraordinary and very important and well-developed sector. Maybe if we can focus a little bit more on what the Chamber does in relations to the financial sector, obviously keeping in mind the topic that we have within the association for ourselves with family offices. How do you see the current developments in the financial sector? How is that evolving? Bearing in mind, obviously, the financial sector with the banks in Luxembourg, obviously with asset management growing in importance. How do you see that evolve right now?
Thank you for the questions. As you know, China and Luxembourg have a long history of cooperation. In fact, next year we will celebrate the 50th anniversary of diplomatic relations. In cooperation with Luxembourg Trade and Invest, we have a pamphlet that provides a snapshot of facts, figures, and the milestone of China-Luxembourg bilateral relations. It is available in our website in English and in Chinese for anyone interested. For today, I will just give a brief introduction. So, at the forefront of our recent economic cooperation is the banking sectors. The year of 1979 was an important one. The first Luxembourg branch of a Chinese bank was established by Bank of China. In the same year, the Grand Duke Henry of Luxembourg made the first Luxembourg state visit to China. Since then, the other 6 Chinese banks have set up their EU hubs in Luxembourg. And the 2 other Luxembourg banks, the BIL and the Haukendorf Hauser, are owned by Chinese shareholders. It is clear that Luxembourg has become a gateway for Chinese banks to Europe, as well as their companies and the organizations. We have seen such companies as China Three Gorges and the Beijing Enterprise setting up here, as well as Chinese fintech companies. For example, Pingpong was the first Chinese fintech companies to receive a payment institution license from Luxembourg government in 2017. Also, in the ICT manufacturing, automobile, and the space sectors, you may be familiar with the foreign companies who are active in Luxembourg. China Communication, China Telecom, Huawei Technology, Well Cloud, the part of Alibaba Group, and the Shanghai automotive industry, to name just a few. In fact, we look at the historic relationship between China and Luxembourg. We need to go back well before Luxembourg was a financial hub in the late 1800s. Luxembourg engineer Eugene Robert spent many years in China. and built the first blast furnace in China in 1994. In more recent years, we have seen the growth of cross-industry cooperation, and many Luxembourg companies have set up in China. In particular, the logistics sector development have been huge. One cannot talk about the bilateral relationship without mentioning, of course, the success story of the Cargolux in China. Cargolux flew the first cargo flight from Luxembourg to mainland China in 1999 and has been a big contributor to the cooperation and the China's Belt and Road Initiative. Luxembourg companies in other industry are also setting up their factory in China, such as Corvus, ArcelorMittal, Ceratizid. Furthermore, we've seen the Luxembourg product on the Chinese market. Buffett & Beer, Lixley, and Henry Robert White, etc. But coming back to the finance and the trade sectors, without doubt, this is an integral part of the cooperation in China. And more recently, for example, the BIL established its rep office in Beijing in 2019. It was the first Luxembourg bank to do so. So in summary, there are many active business players between China and Luxembourg. I really encourage you to connect with these companies to learn more about what they are doing, both in Luxembourg and in China. Thank you.
Thank you, King. I think you made some very interesting points there, and I would like to dig into it a little bit more, especially when we talk about private wealth, and obviously you've been head of private wealth at BIL. You've seen the exposure that's being created now with the bank being present in China. How do you see Luxembourg evolve as a hub for private wealth and perhaps more in general family offices? Is this something that is going to happen? Is it something that is already happening because we have these large companies that are actually choosing Luxembourg to be based in? How can we develop this business, and how can we influence the development of the link between China and Luxembourg from a family office perspective?
Thank you. When you look at our members' directory, you don't immediately see that the family office in our member list, but we do have people represented involved in the family office in our membership base. In general, they seem not to seek visibility, mostly financial sector and the individual members, but wish to be part of the chamber to make connections with potential clients and the service providers. So we all know China has become the largest number of billionaires in the world. So the business of China's family office has huge potential for future development, and the prospects can be expected. We are increasingly seeing that Luxembourg family office is exploring the development of Chinese business. We expected that more and more Chinese clients will be attracted to Luxembourg family office in the very near future. As such, we encourage the business community to be ready and make the right connections. Also, in order to make those connections, people are welcome to join our chamber and the networking. Thank you.
Thank you, King. So, if I would like to conclude, and maybe from yourselves a couple of words on how do you think we should further collaborate? What are maybe in a couple of words the things that we should do to make this happen and to make it happen in a proper manner? And obviously building on your expertise and then our expertise, how just in a couple of words, what is it that we can do to enhance and facilitate the growth?
Yes, I think it's better we make the connection and the collaboration with the Chinese family office together, because in China it is very difficult. It's a very special situation. You know, all the funds. It's not for the moment. The RMB is not free secure. So we need to working together with the family office. I think it's the best way to continue or develop the family office business with China.
Thank you very much, King. Very interesting discussion, very insightful. I definitely look forward to our next discussions and obviously working together closely with the China Lux Chamber of Commerce and LAFO. I think there's a lot of overlap that we can create. And I wish to thank you once again for the interview and hope to see you soon.
Thank you. See you soon. Bye.
Have a nice day. Bye-bye.